Welcome to Open Book, Writers on Writing, a collaboration between Slate Magazine and the NYU Creative Writing Program. Here are your hosts, Deborah Landau and Megan O'Rourke.
Jonathan Lethem's numerous books include Motherless Brooklyn, The Fortress of Solitude, and Chronic City, which was named one of the 10 best books of the year by the New York Times. Thanks so much for joining us, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me.
So we thought we would just start at the very beginning and ask, when did you first know that you wanted to be a writer? Was there a moment? Was it a process of discovery?
Yeah, it's a tricky question for me in a way because my aspiration to be a writer, my identity, my self-definition as a writer was kind of lurking behind another identity. I was thinking I was going to be a painter. My father's a painter, and I grew up in a kind of visual arts household. I could impress the grown-ups very easily with little drawings and paintings, and so I was the art prodigy kid. That was what I seemed destined to do. I mean, we'd go to museums, and I absorbed a tremendous amount of visual arts culture. But when I fantasized, you know, it was about being a writer in a way. I read writers' biographies, and I took my favorite books back then, you know, Lewis Carroll, Ray Bradbury, you know, a little bit later, Kafka, Borges, Dickens, Raymond Chandler. I took those to heart. And so even though I was painting and kind of playing this role in the world of the art kid, I secretly wanted to write.
I'd heard that you wrote a novel as a teenager that was never published.
I did. My mother gave me a typewriter when, I think it was for my 14th birthday. Very fateful in a way because she was going to die that year. And
was she sick already?
She was sick already. She'd been sick for several years. So she knew. There was some degree to which I was broadcasting this other ambition. And it was imperfectly hidden. But when I was 15, the summer after she died, I spent that summer banging out this 125-page thing. I called it a novel. You know, it was literally typed on a manual typewriter on torn-out notebook pages. I can still see these in my mind's eye very easily. The type very rarely aligning to the blue lines on the page, because how could you roll it in and get it right?
I was thinking that you're one of the most well-read people that I know, and yet you left Bennington as a sophomore and never went back. And how did you make your way as a writer on your own? I know you were working at secondhand.
Well, I mean, I'm always.
I invoke you actually when our graduate students ask me if they need a PhD to become a writer and teach writing. I say, well, apparently not.
No, I did self-educate in a certain way, but I had great luck with teachers while I was in school. I had great experiences in high school. My glancing encounter at Bennington was pretty interesting, and it still informs you know, a lot of the stuff that I was offered, and I seemed to throw it over. I seemed to refuse it. In fact, it stayed with me. I kept thinking about it, and so in 3 semesters at Bennington, I did absorb a lot of stuff.
Did you have mentors as a younger writer along the way?
Yeah, I sought out people who could help me. I tugged on various sleeves. It was sort of like I was cobbling together a graduate school experience for myself. I found a writers group, other people who'd exchange manuscripts with me, and we did what was in effect a kind of workshop. And
now you teach writing to graduate students. How do you teach someone to write a novel?
Well, you can't really. The thing you can teach is, the great secret is you can only teach editing and reading. And you know, of course, what is editing? It's reading yourself, which sounds like nothing. It seems like the simplest thing, but actually looking at the words you've committed to the page and grasping their implications is one of the hardest things to do. Yeah. Learning to read yourself effectively takes years, and when you learn to do it, a door opens. It's not just that, okay, suddenly you can fix it, suddenly you can see what's working and what's hopeless, what hasn't, you know, what's occurred and what hasn't occurred, what you only imagined you were putting across. But it means that you can start to understand your own ambitions, your own interests. Oh, look, you know, I thought I was going to do this, or I was going to be this kind of writer, but I seem to actually, you know, when I sit down and I make marks on the page, this comes out. Oh, okay, well, you know, what does that mean for me? What do I want to do?
Do you revise a lot yourself?
For me, you know, I learned to write, well, I didn't keep writing on that little tiny manual typewriter I was given for my 14th birthday, but I did get, you know, an electric typewriter, and I'm probably one of the youngest people walking on this earth who can say I wrote three and a half novels on a Selectric.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Which meant revision was a very material process.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you know, just changing the words on this amorphous screen. It meant rolling a clean sheet of paper into the typewriter and retyping every word.
Mm-hmm. Which probably had a value to it.
I think
actually.
a tremendous value.
Yeah.
I learned to revise by
doing that.
basically handling the entire book over again, from beginning to end. And sometimes when I'm teaching and I realize these students are all working on computers and they don't have any idea how to begin to think about revision, I ask them, I command them, not that they're necessarily going to obey me, but I say, delete your file, print it out, delete it, and re-enter every word. See what it's like to handle the sentences again, because something happens.
Right.
There's an alchemy in moving the sentences back through your fingertips and seeing what they feel like a second time.
In the body.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
think
still
so.
do that? Do you ever still do that?
No, I don't need to. I learned to do what I needed to do.
Yeah.
I'm actually a compulsive reviser. I mean, I think I love it as much as I love
Writing.
putting the words down the first time.